Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come here. Actually, energy is not on one of my research topics, has not been on my research agenda before I moved to Japan, but we started a project on local communities and the multiple challenges that they face, and energy is one of the important challenges or opportunities within the challenge, others being demographic change, agricultural reforms, social disparities, and so on. So I also want to emphasize in my short talk the interrelationship, the complexity of the different challenges that local communities face. Now let me move on. That's the outline. I'm very thankful to Professor Yoshida that he already introduced quite a few regional projects focused basically mainly in Hokkaido, because I'm not going to talk so much about single projects. I don't have the time, and it would give, I'd rather want to give an overview and show you what sort of what the overall level of community power is at the moment in Japan, and then maybe we can compare to the German situation. There are many 100% renewable energy self-sufficiency communities. Actually, these data are taken from a report prepared by the Chiba University, the research laboratory at Chiba University, and the Institute for Sustainable Energy Policy, ICEP. They looked at data. It's not so easy. They had to calculate this data basically manually. So they looked at electricity and heat demand by households, private business, and the primary sector, and they looked at the supply by renewables being solar, wind, geothermal, small hydro, and biomass, and they found that in Japan, well, we have about 1,700 communities in Japan, very few when you compare with the 11,000 communities we have in Germany. So 1,700 communities in Japan, 50 of them, or now 57 of them have only renewables. They produce energy from renewables that surmounts their demand of total energy, meaning energy demands by household and private business and primary sector, not transportation, for example, and other sectors. For electricity alone, self-sufficiency in terms of electricity, 89 communities now. I looked at where these communities concentrate, and most of them, 13, are in Nagano Prefecture, in the middle of Honshu. Nagano Prefecture, then we have Hokkaido coming next with 7, and Kumamoto in Kyushu, Aomori north of Honshu, and so on. So, and that's all of them. Yamanishi, the one with just one community, the other prefectures. So many prefectures don't have any of these. But it's interesting to see, and the top communities produce 10 times as much from renewable energy that they need for themselves. But I must say this does not mean, although it's advertised as being these are sustainability examples, first of all, this does not necessarily mean community energy. And also it does not necessarily mean sustainability, because many of these small communities, I only checked a few, have a big demographic problem, shrinking population, and maybe they are only self-sufficient because they have no industry, and that's a big problem. So talking about community energy, the community energy movement is said to have started in Hokkaido in 2001, with this wind power, the wind power citizen or community financed wind power project in Hamato Metsu. And this is how the financial scheme. It was financed. The organizer was the Hokkaido Green Fund. There are quite a few green asset funds now in Japan who support this kind of investment. And now in 2014, famous for in the field of renewable energy. A quite prominent figure is Tetsunari Ida, the president of ISEC, and he, in the annual report, the Renewable Japan Status Report 2014, he says 2014 for him is the community power Gannen, so it's the era, the start of community power era in Japan. Why? Because by 2014 there were more than 50 community energy projects, starting with the one in 2001. And he sees this as a bottom-up energy revolution, coming now to Japan in 2014 with 50 or more projects. Put this in context to the German situation, please. I think we have different figures. Now, and still, I don't take his bottom-up energy revolution literally, because in the same report you see, we in Japan, there's also top-down policies. And the top-down policies, there's the Ministry of Environment, and they have an initiative, they give money in a region-led renewable energy business initiative that started in 2011. They selected 25 communities by 2013. And together with the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery, they have another initiative, Harmonic Regional Business Model Initiative, and they have selected 6 projects there. So this is the top-down initiative. And if you take them together, I don't think you see all this, but this is also a map. They dominate, the top-down projects dominate the so-called community finance projects. The ones who are not under the ministerial schemes are the red square and the blue triangle. These are the ones that are not part of this top-down scheme, and they are the minority out of these just above 50 projects. So I don't know whether this is sort of the bottom-up. I think it's top-down, bottom-up, both directions. And one project which is not among the list of these 50s, it's a project that started in the mid-2000s in the small town of Oki in the Fukuoka prefecture. The arrow here. It's the Fukuoka prefecture. We visited the city. It's famous for its biomass. It was one of the first communities in Japan that introduced biomass. And the interesting thing about this city is, I think, that the number of inhabitants, it has about 15,000 inhabitants. It's a small town in a Japanese context. And this number of inhabitants didn't change since 1955. There were slight downs up to 1980, but then it recovered. So it's I think that makes it even more interesting than the fact that it started with the biomass project. But maybe the stability of the community might also be an indication why they were so innovative in this area. So it's an agricultural community, a lot of rice fields, very flat, and they started a reuse waste initiative, and they introduced biomass in 2006. And they don't have wood. There are no forests in the community. There are forests outside. But what they use for the biomass is basically household waste, kitchen waste, human waste, and sludge, septic tank sludge. And they produce energy and fertilizer. And they've been able to reduce the burnable waste by 50% through this project. The project is run by the community. It's not owned by the citizens legally, but it's run by the community, initiated by the community. And they started later on a power generation project, which is citizen-owned to promote solar power generation. They also have a very detailed recycling system. So they're really different. They also offer training all over Japan. Other communities come there and send teams, and they are trained in their training center to learn about how to run such a biomass station. I think for myself, always trying to get sort of the general overall picture. What do we, in order to put this in context, these examples or also the figures I gave you before, what I think, we also had some hints in the discussion in the former session. What I think is important to understand what's happening in Japan, I think we have to consider first of all the administrative system, which is quite different from Germany. And the administrative system has been characterized by more decentralization recently, over the last maybe 15, 20 years, more decentralization in a much more centralized structure originally, but nevertheless ongoing top-down support. So when you hear, I had the opportunity to listen twice to Mr. Ishiba's talk. He's the Minister for the Renewal of the revival of the regions in Japan. When you hear him talk, I think he talks a lot about decentralization and how it is necessary. But when he then introduces the programs offered by his ministry, you see the old top-down approach. The money is coming from top, the people are sent from top, and the information is given from the top. Yeah. So there is this, but still, because of the decentralization, there is room for entrepreneurial mayors. And a prominent example is Mr. Makino from the city of Ida. Politics, I think energy politics in Japan is fascinating, because don't mistake energy policy by what the Meiji says. It's part of energy policy, but it's not everything. There's so many different things happening in Japan, and so many conflicting interests. Of course, there's a nuclear lobby, and they basically have the channel to the Meiji, but they are measures to promote renewables against maybe the interests of the nuclear lobby. The electricity sector reform is 10 years behind Europe, I would say, in terms of separation of production and grid. But it's going to come, and this will have definitely an accelerating impact if it's done correctly. Climate change policy in Japan is seen as an industrial policy. There are quite a few industries who are interested in promoting renewables. They see new business, smart cities, offshore wind, fuel cells, and renewable energy is seen as a very good tool for regional development, and also for solving Japan's forest problem. There are now quite a few very strong, influential, professional Japanese NGOs. I mentioned ICEP, there's the Japan Renewable Energy Forum, there's Japan for Sustainability. They have websites, they have Japanese and English websites. There are movements and action networks, and business who is offering technology, finance, operation, and also doing lobbying in order to promote their case. An interesting thing, just a side comment here, is that Germany plays very prominent in all these movements. There are lots of references made to Germany. All these NGOs I mentioned have direct personal connections. The mayor of Ida, Mr. Makino, he's been living in Germany for some time. They have been inspired by what they saw here. There's a new movement now in Japan under the name of Stadtwerke, taking sort of the separation of the grid and the production, sort of already anticipating this, and so they use actually the term Stadtwerke in katakana, and there's a lot of cross-border business between Germany and Japan. I think for the potential of community energy in Japan, it's really only in the beginning. Yeah, it's nothing compared to Germany yet. But what we see, what we felt when we visited Oki, the small town Oki, which started on their own, there is a strong ownership, sense of ownership. We must and we can. Yeah, and we had a DIJ forum on this topic. I think Steffi, when you were with us in Tokyo, Thomas Karberger from the Japan Renewable Energy Forum, he was talking about how to transform Japan into an energy-rich economy and what needs to be done. And we had a second speaker from Japan, actually an investor, Mr. Yamazaki, who has his own investment management asset management fund. They invest in solar projects and in biomass projects. And they came to the conclusion, what needs to be done is to break the information monopoly. The information monopoly that tells the Japanese people that renewables are expensive, that they are unstable, that this is not the future for Japan, and that Japan needs to rely forever on nuclear power. And this is what actually these NGOs do, that they bring in new information, they build up new expert knowledge, new expertise, which sort of counterbalances the vested interest knowledge or information monopoly in this context. I think cross-regional, cross-border information exchange is very important in this context. Also the exchanges between Germany and other countries and Japan. And of course, in the end, whether community energy constitutes a competitive business model, I think this can also be questioned in Germany to some extent. If the policy framework changes, if the feed-in tariff system, and it's going to be reduced in Japan, they are already reducing the feed-in tariffs for solar. At some stage, I think not all of these community projects might be viable in the long run. Yeah. So, but still, I think still in the this would not question the energy term in the Japanese context. Might question the community model in the mid or longer run. Thank you very much.